Hey everyone, Eyal from MINDst here, and I wanted to go over some of the cool features in our new plugin, MINDst Drums. So now that I have MINDst Drums loaded in my DAW, first thing I might want to do is just check out some of the built-in grooves. So I can hit play here, this will arm the track, and hit spacebar. And let's pick another groove. For example, let's pick this thing. Maybe this. One of the things you might want to do right away is just experience the grooves with a different velocity curve, just to get some experience of the different dynamics that this can do. So, for example, I'm just going to play the first groove, click here, and change the velocity curve so it's hitting a bit more down. Or maybe I want to curve it a little bit, so it takes a bit more effort to get to the top. Or maybe the other way around, right? I can also add points, right? So I can make it a non-linear curve with different ones. And I can just reset back to the beginning. MINDst Drums has quite a huge library with a lot of variants, dynamics, round robins, etc. But there's also a lot you can do with customizing the performance. I'm going to show you this to you throughout this video. For example, I'm just going to play this initial groove. I'm going to click the snare, click the settings button, and I can then choose which zone the snare will be hit on. So let's start with the side. And let's go towards the center, which is punchier. And let's go to the B zone, which is in between. Back to the side, back to the center. I can experiment with different articulations too by changing the default articulation of the snare center to side stick. Or maybe to rim shot, back to center. And I can also switch this so it would change based on my dynamics and my velocity. So that would split it so that only the top velocities will go to rim shot and the softer ones will go to center. Or I can turn it off and go back to the default. Let's talk a bit about snare programming. Let's say I got a bunch of really fast snares happening in 30-second notes, right? So first of all, you can hear already there's some variance in there and there's some left-right hand alternating, but it's still pretty stiff, right? So let's start as some dynamics. I'm just going to draw this rising curve here. Maybe I'll change this a bit here, like this or something. Great. This is my my fill. Let's hear it. Nice. Let me put a loop on this. Let's loop it. Nice. Now, this will automatically start by alternating hands. This happens by default, right? So it will just go from left to right, left to right. But in orchestral fills and stuff like that, drummers might not play exactly like this. What they'll do is use a two-stroke on each hand before switching to the next hand. So there's another note currently assigned to D sharp, while the regular snare is D. And I'm just going to pick every other snare, right? And take it down over here. Let's hear it. This is pretty cool, right? Let's hear it compared to this. And then this. So this is one of the ways where you can make your snares feel a bit richer. There's a lot you can do on the hi-hat as well. So for example, let me just draw up this 16th note groove. So I'm just going to draw up 16th notes on the hi-hat. Let's hear it. Incredible. And let's add some, kick and side stick. So you can hear that there's some alternating happening, that there's some round robins and stuff, but it's still a bit stiff for something this fast. That's because traditionally, when a drummer would play this, let me click on the hi-hat here. So traditionally, a drummer would play this using one hand, but there's also a way to play this using two hands when they're alternating. So let's hear the difference. It's much more shuffling, I think, right? Let's add a bit of velocity to this. So let me have each second one slightly lower in velocity. Let's hear it again, starting from single hand mode. Let's switch. Switch back. So one is slightly more steady, the other is a bit more shuffly and groovy. Another important element to control is the default articulation, whether it's tip or shank. So this is tip, And this is shank. Something else that's fun to do is switch the hi-hat mode into one of the variable hi-hat modes. So for example, you can switch to MIDI CC, and then you can draw the amount of opening in the hi-hat in the modulation lane. So for example, let's draw up something like this. We're pretty open. Let's start with this. Let's open one. Maybe let's open one. Maybe let's open this one a little bit. Let's talk about what we can do with the mixer. I'm going to click here and go to the mixer window. The mixer is pretty powerful, and it allows you to control a lot in the way that a live drum kit would have been recorded in the studio. Let's go over this a bit. So all these plays, you can see I have the kick, snare, hi-hat, overheads, right? I can solo on one of them. So let's solo on the snare. Notice that I can actually hear some of the other drums bleeding into this mic. I can tweak that by going into the bleed mixer. Let's get the bleeds back, right? So there's quite a lot of bleeds of all the different drums into the snare. I can mix them individually. Here's the kick through the snare. And that would sound cool if I add the kick back in. Right? Without the bleed, the kick is super dry. But with it, sounds more alive. Right? Same with the overheads. Let me get the solo off and listen to the overheads. Right? I have a mixer of everything in the overheads. And this would help me blend, the kick and snare back together. Let's remove all the solos. There's a lot more detail in this. For example, if I go to the kick, let's solo back on the kick. I have a bunch of different microphones on the kick. I can solo them. Right, this is the kick in. This is the kick out. This is the kick condenser. Right, that one is really, more natural sounding, I guess. And this one is a special one. This is the sub, which is actually a synthesizer that gets added. And you can tune it. Hopefully your listening system lets you hear this. Or have a more solid kick without it, right? Same with the snare, right? If I close this, I can see the 4 different microphones on the snare. I have the top, I have the bottom, and I have 2 other extra microphones, like this extra top mic and this condenser mic. All of these you can just blend as much as you like, mute, and you have individual EQ over each microphone as well. For example, I can solo on the snare top microphone, add some low shelf to get a bit more bottom end. Oh, here's a nice low end on just this mic. This is useful because, for example, I might want to solo on this microphone and reduce highs here without interrupting the nice highs I get from the net. Right? So it's a very powerful tool for sound design. Then I have the master effects. So I have the compressor, the EQ. I can even add a drive. Maybe bit crush a bit. Right, so this allows you quite a lot of control. Something else that's very important is the sense to the reverb. So for example, let's use the snare here. So there are 2 scents here, one for the plate and one for the studio. This is the dry sound. Completely dry, right? Bit of room. A bit of plate. The settings for this reverb can be found here. So I can click Master and Effects and click Reverbs, and then I can pick from a few different plate types and adjust the EQ on the reverb, or maybe just make the reverb itself louder or softer. On the master, I have also some effects. So I have the compressor, where I can compress everything, or maybe apply some parallel compression with the lower mix. And I can also apply a low-pass filter. And just like the track, I have drive controls on the master. So let's bring it in, bring the mix way up. I can distort it, and I can bit crush it. And then I can lower the mix, so it's only adding a little bit to the crunchiness. I can also use this knob to change the width. So if I'll get this lower, I'm going to get back into mono. This is fully width. This is fully open. This is closed. And I can reverse the width by going back here. If you're very professional about mixing, you might want to use your own plugins to do the mix. For that, we have all kinds of multi-out presets that let you get different variations of the kit as individual tracks. That part is a little different from DAW to DAW, but the first thing usually you want to do, I'm here in Cubase, and I can just go to my VST instruments and enable all the outputs. Once I've enabled them in my DAW, I can use one of the multi-out presets. So for example, I can use the groups preset. And if I'm gonna go to my mix console, you will see that I can have different tracks for the kick, and different ones for the snare, different ones for the hi-hat, and I can mix using any plugins. If I want even more control, one preset that I like is the All Mics preset. That totally bypasses everything in the mixer and gives you complete control. So for example, you can see you have separate microphones for the hi-hat, all the microphones for the snare, everything for the kick. So this is where you want to go if you want to do a very, very detailed mix. Not all DAWs allow you to have that many channels, but the ones that do will usually make a tweaker like you very happy. One last thing to note is the presets. You can switch from a global preset right here that includes the entire kit as well as the mixer. But you can also choose a mixer preset, right? And just choose a specific thing for the mixer. And if you go to the MIDI map window where you edit the MIDI mapping, over there you can also save and load an individual preset. We've already added one for some of the famous other plugins and drum machines, but you can save your own, map your own, use MIDI learn, etc. So there are a lot more features in MINDst Drums. If you go to the mixer window, if you go to the kit window, the MIDI mapping window, there's a bunch where you can dive in and do individual tweaking. You can do velocity curves to each drum and overlaps between the same cymbal and other kind of stuff. But hopefully this was enough for you to kind of check it out, maybe go to our website, listen to some of the demos, and hopefully you'll make some great music out of this.